You're listening to Lunch with the Finance Bunch, bringing money talk you can understand. You know, the show this year, our theme is New Year, New You.
Yes.
And this year we have you as our new co-host.
Ooh, look at me.
I know. And I wanted to talk to you about that. I think the audience needs to know, first why I chose you.
Mm-hmm.
DjBander, for those who don't know, if you didn't get to see his interview with us, it was amazing. And so we decided to bring him on as a new co-host because DjBander has a very eclectic background. So not only is he a DJ, a very successful DJ, but he also has multiple streams of income, one of them being his investments. And so I thought it would be a nice twist to see someone from the music industry come in and co-host with me, and we talk about how we get the bag. Is that what you said?
Oh yeah, bag talk. That's it. Absolutely.
Right? Okay, so what I wanted to know from you is, you know, as a DJ and the way that you have, you know, been so successful in DJing and all your business ventures and all that, what made you decide that you needed multiple streams of income?
For sure. Well, first I'd like to emphasize that while yes, of course I'm a DJ, I would say bread and butter is production.
Okay.
And that's important to emphasize because I think, you know, there's a lot of up and coming musicians and artists, producer DJs specifically, who need to understand that what sets them apart is the creative production side to it. And for me, you know, I was very lucky to come, you know, from a business background and to have gone to business school. And so I knew early on that music income is unstable.
Yes.
You know, you're of course going to have months where you're doing great. You're going to have months when you're not doing so great.
Right. And
what separates artists that are successful financially from those who continue to struggle are the ones who plan ahead. And as I like to, you know, like to use a theme of saving, you know, so I think, you know, perhaps I'm in a unique position to be able to help people understand, you know, a way that you can, I think when people think about artists, there's often a sense of, oh, they're going to be somewhat ignorant. They're not educated. They don't have the backgrounds, you know, and they need to be managed by 100 different people. And I like to, you know, think of myself as somebody who's been able to show that that's not the case, that you can be incredibly financially literate and incredibly creative at the same time.
I agree with that. And here's another question for you. Do you think that a lot of times you get that perception because of what goes on in the media, and the ones who are financially savvy don't really say a whole lot about it because that's not where their focus is as far as who they are as a person is on the entertainment side? So maybe they keep that part more known. So the ones like you who are very successful, you don't necessarily talk up that side of your success.
For sure. I think there's also sometimes there's an inclination to think, you know, when people think of like people who are celebrities, for example, or artists who are successful financially, they think of it in a very simple linear way, which is just that they've earned so much money that they're successful because they couldn't even spend what they've earned. You know, like a Floyd Mayweather, these guys like, oh, he makes so much money that like he just has endless monies to spend. And what doesn't get any attention in the news and the media are the musicians, artists, entertainers, actors who make a decent amount of money.
That's right.
But they're smart with it and they've invested it and they've saved it. And now they're playing with a lot of money based on smart decisions, not based on lucky payouts. And so a lot of times I feel I go up against the sort of assumption like, oh, he's got his money up. He rolled the dice and won. And, you know, people really miss and don't appreciate just how much discipline has gone into all of the decisions that I've made in my life, and I suspect many other successful artists.
Absolutely. And I think it's across the board, and that's what I love about the show, is that we get to show all different industries and the success that can be won there by each individual and what they choose to create as their success. Because I think a lot of times we look at, you know, like you said, people in music, people who are in sports, people who are in the entertainment field, because they're the most seen, whether it's in sports or they're singers, dancers, whatever that is, because they're the most seen.
Totally.
But there are people who are behind the scenes that create the same kind of wealth and sometimes even more. and they're behind the scenes. So what we get a chance to do is interview just a little bit of everybody.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think that for me is one of the main reasons I decided to do this show.
For sure.
You know, because I wanted a person to be able to see that you don't necessarily have to be in front of the camera to have success. And if you do choose to be in front of the camera, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be successful if you don't create the kind of income some of these big names that you've mentioned, you know, the kind of money they've had.
Exactly. And I think when a lot of people think of finance shows, they think of, I need to get this stock, or I need to invest in this company, I need to do this thing. And a lot of people look at that with discouragement because they think, well, I don't have that kind of money. So like, why would I even care to follow a finance show? Because I'm not even at a level yet where I can play in the game that these guys are talking about. But what I'd like to emphasize on this show, and what I would like my role to be as co-host is to say that gaining wealth and getting to that level is what you decide to do and your responsibility today.
Exactly.
And the choices you make every day, you know, getting the extra lattes, spending hours and hours watching Game of Thrones instead of working on your side business.
Yes.
These are the choices that Americans make every day that make the long-term trajectory difference. Like when you're 50 and you retire, do you have $1 million+ in your retirement account, or do you have 50,000? Those are more often than not made from the simple day-to-day choices. And that's what I think is the gap that our listeners, you know, really are missing. And I hope that together we can bridge that.
Definitely. That's the gap. You're exactly right that I do want to bridge. And that's why I was so excited about having you on the show.
For sure.
Because I think together we can bridge that gap.
100%.
You know, I was telling our videographer that earlier this week I was in a meeting with all these financial people, and we'll leave it at that. And the gentleman who was talking, he was from the secondary markets. He had been in the stock market, and he buys and sells, you know, on that level for a corporation.
Yeah.
And so he was talking to us about the stability of the company and all these things. And he threw out a financial term that you would have to either be in those markets to know, or have worked in those markets to even understand what he was talking about. And he threw out the simple question, do you know what this phrase means? No one in the room raised their hand, and no one in the room knew what he was talking about. But I think there's this stigma around financial literacy that creates this almost silence, that people don't ask questions. They don't raise their hand when they don't understand something. And it's almost like this elephant in the room of shaming people because they don't know everything about finance.
Absolutely. And it creates this vicious cycle where the shame leads to resentments from the people who are struggling against the rich. And instead of looking at it as like, what moves do I have to make that I can make to get to this level? Instead is like, why do they have it and I don't?
Exactly. And that's a bridge.
And that's a bridge we have to create a connection with, because I think that many people unfortunately leave so much money on the table just out of unfortunate, discouragement that they feel on a day-to-day level when they look at society,
Absolutely. The other part that I feel is the missing link is that people look at finance in this microscopic way, and they don't realize that it's wealth building actually that we're talking about.
Yes.
And wealth building is not just this laser focus on just money, but it's a total wellness package. It's a total wealth package, because you have people who only focus on the markets and they only focus on what's going on there, and they have no life outside of that. And I think especially at my age, which is what I love about this dynamic, is that when you get to my age and you look back at your life, you know, in some places you wish you would have spent more time focused on finance, but you also, if you're successful, might think you wish you had more balance.
I like that.
Right? And so I think that the balanced person is really the successful person.
Oh, that's a great point. I agree fully.
Right? And so I think that's another bridge that I'm happy we're going to be able to cross together as a team, because, I can talk to my younger self through you, and you can talk to your older self through me, because together we can help people get to the success that they want to see. Because I'm telling you, if you're blessed enough to make it to a certain age, what you don't want to have is the worry that you had at your younger age about your financial stability. So you said, the extra latte, the $300 lipstick, the $800 pair of shoes.
Right.
You know, you're not going to wear those shoes when you're 60.
Exactly.
Right?
No,
You're not.
totally.
So, you know, we want to create a bridge that allows people to be entertained, you know, but also learn something and not feel the financial embarrassment that sometimes comes along with talking about money.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I like that.
And so for you, you have quite a diverse background. And one of the things that I saw in you was that you play on different fields and you're not afraid to go there.
For sure.
So I want to talk a little bit about mortgage because I think that's a bridge for us, me being in the residential end of things and you being in the commercial end of things. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that too.
Absolutely.
And so I know you have your own investments.
I do.
And there are people out there who say, like, I'd love to own like a little warehouse or I'd love to own something like that. What would you say to a person like that? How can they get started?
Well, I think, you know, it's true. I mean, a lot of the problems that people have in terms of investment is that they don't, you know about the diversity of what kind of investments there are. When people think real estate, they only think residential. And I think that the first thing is to understand that there are many different classes of real estate investment.
Yes.
And that all of those need to be explored. And then I think the next thing it comes down to is really making sure that people have their saving philosophy because it does require capital. You know,
it goes back to saving
I don't
discipline.
recommend it comes back to saving discipline and that, you know, for people can really, you know, go to a place where they're like, okay, I've saved enough money and now I want to look for my options. I want to see what sort of choices are out there. And I think that's really what it comes down to. It's just, you know, once you've secured your capital, then it's starting to ask the questions of where do you want to put it? And just remembering that there are other options. You can think outside the box. It's not just about the standard ARM mortgage with the house with the picket fence. Nothing wrong with that.
Yes.
But that's just one choice. But I'm sure we can explore it more after the break.
Yeah, and we'll have more guests that'll be coming in during
Absolutely.
the year that will go into more depth with that.
There's
for us.
many ideas we need to bounce off them too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So we're going to break right here and we're going to come back and we're going to talk more about what is going to be the expectation for the show.
Absolutely.
I'm Charlene.
And I am DjBander.
And we're on Dash Talk X, and this is Lunch with the Finance Bunch. We'll be right back. And we're back in the studio with my new guest, not even a guest. He is my new co-host, DjBander. And we were talking about how he got into commercial real estate versus residential real estate.
Right.
So DjBander, I want you to finish your point about what made you decide to get into commercial real estate as a part of your investment portfolio.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, I was lucky enough to have, you know, friends and family and a network that recommended commercial real estate to me in the first place as something viable that I should consider. You know, it's not something that's taught about in school.
It really isn't.
It's not something that's even discussed when people say they do real estate or they're becoming a real estate broker or investor. It's seldom that they're discussing commercial.
Absolutely.
And a part of that is, of course, the fact that commercial in general is more capital intensive than residential.
Yes, it
is. It requires more money. But what people don't understand is that you can go in as a partner with other people that have capital. And that's what I was able to do early on. You know, when I had my first amount of savings, what got me into it was joining a partnership that was investing, as you mentioned earlier, in warehouse space in downtown LA. And I was also had good timing. I invested towards the end of 2009. And it, you know, it gave me an opportunity to build my capital while also at the same time having income. And that's something that I think people want to consider when they make an investment, whether it be residential or commercial. Unless it's an Airbnb rental, if you're putting your money into something to live in, well, you know, you can definitely gain capital doing that, but you're also putting a lot of money on the sidelines that you're not really having work for you.
Exactly.
So these are themes that we, of course, will be discussing more in this show.
Absolutely. And what I love about the fact that we are co-hosting this show is that we can explore these things in depth with our experts that we're going to be bringing on.
Of course.
And so on the residential side where I live, you know, when people talk about, you know, the American dream, You know, they want the house, like you mentioned, with the picket fence
Right.
and all that. But there are steps to that. That's not something that you just rush into.
Of course.
You have to prepare yourself for it, not only financially, but also mentally. And, you know, I ask a lot of times, I'll ask especially first-time home buyers, I'll ask them, you know, what is your goal and purpose with purchasing this home? Why are you buying it?
Yes.
You know, and if it's for the right reasons, and those reasons are totally up to you what the right reasons are. But in your purchase, one thing I do suggest that you don't make yourself house rich and cash poor.
It's such a great point that you brought up, that especially talking about income rich and liquidity poor.
Yes.
Because one of the biggest things that I feel that frustrates me a lot is that I hear people where it's like, yeah, you know, I can't do that, you know, because I don't have enough money. I've got nothing really in the bank. You know, this is something that's really interesting that people need to understand, is that I know people who make $30,000 a year or less and have tens of thousands of dollars saved.
Yes.
And I know people that make deep six figures and are always broke.
Yes.
And this is something that people need to understand. How much income you have going on has nothing to do with your personal psychology as it relates to money.
That's right.
And people need to get their psychology right, straight up. Like
Right.
people need to get their mindset right about how they relate to money. If you treat money like water, like it's just going to keep coming out of the faucet and you're just going to keep drinking it,
Yes.
it's going to run dry. And so, you know, I really, you know, find it fascinating as I've gotten older. You know, this is something I didn't really understand in my 20s. Now I'm a little older, in my 30s. I'm not trying to give away my age or anything, but
Yeah,
you
30
know,
is really old, DjBander.
maybe it's not only in LA. I
No.
feel, but yeah. So you know what it's taught me is like I've learned. I've worked with different people in business, and I cannot stress enough how much it's like stop using income as the
Yes.
excuse for what you can or can't do, and look more at your spending habits.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
And, you know, in buying a residential property, you know, you need to look at, and, you know, you can sit down with me, of course, if you want to, but, you know, what you need to really look at is the amount of money that you have going out.
Right.
The total picture of the amount of money you have going out. Because I think that what people don't understand is when you are qualified to purchase a home, they're not including the light, the gas, the phone
Exactly.
bill, the gas that you're putting in your car. They're not including those things. You know, if you have tuition for kids, you know, what your spending habits are. Do you eat out a lot? Do you travel a lot? You know,
Totally.
those things are not taken in consideration. We are strictly looking at your FICO score. We're looking at how much money you have to put down. We're looking at, you know, those types of things, how you can keep and maintain this over a 30-year period. We're not looking at your day-to-day expenses that are not on your FICO score.
Exactly.
Right. So, you know, we're going to be able to explore those things because I think that in our space, we're not talking to the so much savvy investor.
Exactly.
We're talking to the daily person who wants to learn how to get out of the rat race
Yes.
of not having enough. Whether that's mentally you feel like you don't have enough, or if actuality on paper you don't think you have enough.
Absolutely. And that's what people need to understand about the goals of this show. The person with millions of dollars already who's got investments, they don't need our help.
Exactly.
They're going to be fine.
Right.
They're going to be fine in the next recession. They're going to be fine in the next growth cycle and the
right.
recession following that. So, and I look at this and I look at my role in the show is the future of America to me in a way is at stake because
Yes.
what creates the strength of the economy is the 99%. It's not the 1% we're worried about here.
That's
we're worried
right.
about everybody else who's on the grind, who's trying to build some personal wealth. One thing I was reading is that, you know, this baby booming generation
Yes.
that's retiring as of right now is the last generation that's projected to be retiring with any kind of real capital. And so, you know, this is an urgent matter because, you know, we're creating an entirely new generation of people who, if they don't change their ways, are really going to have no strategy when they're older.
I agree. And, you know, it's funny that you say that. I'm so glad you brought that up because in doing this show, you know, when I first started doing it and talking about it, I got a lot of pressure saying, you know, why do you care about, you know, talking to the millennials? They're not the ones who are, disciplined, or whatever the negative talk is. And I said, that's exactly why I want to talk to them.
Of course.
Because they're going to be running this country. They're going to be running this world. And when I'm, at an age where I want to put the microphone down, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to put millennials, Gen X, all of them in a position where they have the knowledge to make the decisions that are necessary. Because where I feel that my generation has failed you is that we didn't make the education around financial literacy important enough to put it in the school system.
That's totally true.
A child should not graduate from high school and not understand how to balance something basic as their checkbook.
Absolutely.
It's absurdity to me that if you don't come from a family who is financially savvy, you might get yourself into a situation where you have so much credit card debt that you can't even breathe and you're 21 years old.
Absolutely.
That to me is just, it's past unfortunate.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that we get to do this and we get to educate at a level where it's really necessary.
So necessary.
But we got to keep it fun or they won't listen.
Exactly. Well, we always have fun, don't we, Shar?
Exactly. We
Come on
have
now.
a really good time.
That's what we do.
So I want to talk about like some of the topics we're going to discuss here, right? And so, when we were talking back and forth this week and last week, I was saying, okay, DjBander, what are some of the topics you would like to see us cover? Because I got a litany of them that I don't want to cover, but what are some of the things that you would like to see us cover that you think would help?
Well, as I said earlier, and I touched on, the psychology of this new generation when it comes to money. This is something, of course, is going to be an important theme that I want to touch on. But I also think that what I want to touch on is, I would say, challenging young people to focusing on more things out in the outside world. Like, for example, being on your phone and the whole age of technology that we live in is not inherently necessarily bad. To me, I would like to see young people reading more articles in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, and the Daily Beast and different publications, whether it's left of center, right of center, whatever your political spectrum is, as opposed to spending so much time getting media information from Entertainment News and World Star, and kind of basing your understanding of of financial literacy off sort of the showboating of celebrities and the way that the entertainment culture is sort of putting all this stuff in our face. Because I think that's where a lot of people make the mistake, and they feel like they got to keep up with the Joneses. There's this whole movement of keeping up with the Joneses, especially here in Los Angeles, that is a huge thing, a huge root of what's bankrupting young people.
Yes.
So I think that's something that's really important, and people need to be involved. I'm really excited to have, hopefully some political guests on.
Absolutely.
Because I think that one of the biggest problems is, people who know me in my life know I'm a big news guy. I'm always following current events. One, because I'm a stock and a real estate investor, and knowing world events is crucial to having a long-term strategic outlook.
Absolutely.
But also, what's even more important is just, you have to have an understanding of the system and what the system is, biased against you and where it can help you.
Yes.
So you have an informed angle on it. So you're not just kind of like in the situation where you're just throwing up your hands and you're like, I don't know why, I don't have opportunities. It's never going to happen for me. I'm just going to hate on everybody, And so I just think that, current events, psychology around finances, and political outreach, I think is something that's very important. And there's so many more things I want to touch on, but I would say those are like my top three.
Yes. And for me, those are in my top three also.
Yeah.
And the psychology around money is a big one for me. We've talked about that. And the other thing is I really want to highlight young people who are not just doing it in entertainment, but in other aspects that can come on and speak to some of the questions that your age group has around money. Because we have, I have a wonderful financial analyst that's coming on, and she's young and she's savvy and she's successful, and she can answer the simple questions and the hard questions.
For sure.
Because a basic question is, how do I even get started? And so she's someone who can come on and really address that at its, basic level and at its more advanced level. So those type of people will be able to come on and address the things that we really want to talk about. And I'm really excited about that.
No, me too.
And like you
Absolutely.
said, political people are going to come on. We have people from sports. We have someone who is, a guru in the stock and market and can come on and speak to that too. So I just think we're going to have an amazing, well-rounded show.
It's going to be a big season.
Heck yeah.
Yep.
So when we come back, I'd like to talk more to you about some of the other future things that we'd like to see and answer some of the questions that we got from some of our listeners.
Can't
How's
wait.
that?
Let's do it.
This is Charlene on Lunch with the Finance Bunch on Dash Talk X.
And I'm DjBander.
And we'll be right back. And we're back in the studio with DjBander, my new co-host. And in this segment, we want to talk about New Year, New You, and what that actually means to us.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to start with you because you are my new co-host, and I want everyone to get an opportunity to know you as much as possible.
For sure.
So what does New Year, New You mean to you?
I think New Year, New Me is let's pop the hood on your life.
Yes.
I think that's what people are often the most afraid to do. Like nobody wants to go to the doctor and get checkups, but they really should every year, and I think people need to check up their mindset. And I think, everybody kind of gets emotional around the holidays. I think the holidays leading into the New Year's can be a little bit of a downer for people. But what you have to do is you have to understand what's bringing you down is the fact that most people, it's hard for them to acknowledge is they weren't as disciplined around their goals as they should have been.
Absolutely.
And that's really what it comes down to.
Yes.
We all know we could have worked a little harder around this. We could have, wasted a little less time doing this. We could have put a little bit more work into our side project instead of putting a little bit more time watching Netflix.
Right.
And so, what for me, I started the year, being like, okay, this year, one thing I'm doing is, for example, I had a very good year last year in terms of my recording business, but I want to increase my outreach to artists and increase my client base. So what I did an assessment on myself and I said, look, I'm very good at business when it comes to finances. I'm very good at business when it comes to, understanding engineering and the recording business, this and that. But for example, I'm not an administrator. So
yes.
One thing that I really recommend to people is know what you're great at, and the things that you aren't so great at, don't be afraid to get help around that. Even invest money into that.
Yes.
So I'm bringing new people on board, new employees into my company that I know specialize in areas where I have some softness. And that's fine because, that's going to only tighten your own game up. So, for me, what it means is pushing harder on tasks, but pushing harder in a smart way.
Yes.
Not just, burning the rubber, and really kind of putting a plan together moving forward that involves, a coordination around achieving your tasks that you want to get done for your projects. So that's a big part of what the New Year, New Me is for this guy right here anyway.
You know what? I absolutely love that. And I like your analogy of going under the hood. Because what people tend to do is shine up the outside of the car.
And they ain't got no oil.
And they don't have no oil, no gas. It's a hot mess.
The
under
wheels
the
is
hood.
falling off, but the wax,
Right.
that wax job is clean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I think for myself, what New Year, New You means is exactly the same thing in one way, is that going under the hood and seeing what things that I can improve on. And for me, it's taking on so many projects, right? And really disciplining myself to take on the projects that are really meaningful, that are going to have the outcome that I want.
Right.
And sometimes that means saying no.
Yes.
And so my no game is going to go up in this 2019.
Everybody needs to work on their no game.
Everybody should work on their no game. The other thing for me that I see is the same thing. I am really good in certain areas. Investments, yes. Mortgage banking, amazing. These things I'm great at. What I'm not good at is for me, the nauseating details of administration.
Totally.
I can't stand it. You and I have talked about this. Yeah. That is not who we are.
No, not at all.
And so for me, it's the same thing. I want someone who is a powerhouse in that. And see, here's the thing for me, and that's who I'm hiring. But here's the thing for me is that there's no shame in that. There's power in that. And so for me, it's like, those are the people who are the backbone of helping successful people be successful.
Absolutely.
And so I feel like I need a person like that in my life too, so that I can make sure that the things that I'm focused on completely get done in 2019.
Totally.
Another thing I'd like for people to think about, as they're making these goals and all of this in 2019 is that when you make a goal, put bullet points underneath it so you can get to that goal.
Totally.
Don't just make this big blanket goal of, I want to make $5 million in 2019. How are you going to get there?
Yeah.
What are you going to do month by month to get there? What are you going to do week by week, day by day? How many hours of the day are you going to invest in that?
I couldn't agree more.
Right?
I mean, I got to give a shout out to my dude, Jerome Abney, my business administrator and a good friend. This dude drops that weekly schedule on me.
Yes.
Every Monday AM in the email.
Yes.
And it's a game changer for me because yes, do I know what I need to get done that week? Of course.
Of course.
Is it a lot more helpful when it's laid out in an email and you can point to it and then you meet what you need is somebody. If you're not capable of doing this, find the person who is. Okay.
Right.
You should have a list of goals for that week. And you should be attacking one goal
at a time.
Day.
Yes.
And by Thursday, you should be meeting with that person, if it's not you, and going through and being like, did we complete everything on this weekly list?
Yes.
And if not, well, can we get all this stuff done tonight, right now, before we go to bed? And then guess what? You wake up Friday morning, everything is done for the week.
Exactly.
That's
and then
the
you
strategy.
can enjoy your weekend. And that's what I'm talking about balance.
Yes.
And you know what? I do want to make this clear. Everyone can't afford to have an assistant. Everyone isn't in a space where they have an assistant, but everyone knows some person that they can partner with.
Of course.
That they are that person who
Life is trade.
exactly.
Do something for them.
Exactly.
Say, hey, I'll come and clean your garage out every other Sunday. Will you help me stay organized?
Yes.
People,
Bartering system.
Reach out to your network. One thing, for example, I get a lot of my work on Instagram and Twitter and the Facebook fan page. I have a big following on those social media channels.
Right.
But you know what I've started doing recently? I'm working on other social channels, my LinkedIn. I have to emphasize everybody should be maxing out their LinkedIn.
Yes.
And reach out to new people. Reach out to new people. Hey, is there something that I can offer you? Not, we need to get out of this me mentality moving into 2019. Like that's one thing that really needs to go. Because I feel that what happens is people are like, why isn't the universe doing more things for me? And
what are you doing for
really,
other people?
Stuff comes, you'd be surprised how much people will do for you when you just sort of like step out of your zone and reach out and be like, hey, I'm this person and I have these skills and I'm just reaching out to some new people to see if there's anything I can help with your business
Yes.
in 2019.
Yes.
And you might get a response like, oh, absolutely. Actually, I am used for that. And by the way, if you need any help around business administration, or if you need any help, if you're looking for real estate, whatever it is,
Yes.
you'd be surprised the energy that's returned to you. Some of the biggest successful people, the Cubans, the Gary V's, believe me, there are a lot more of you people than me people. They're not in
Yes.
they're not at the place that they are because they're only worried about what people can do, for themselves.
Exactly. So build a team in 2019.
Get to building.
Get to building, because with numbers come strength.
Yes.
Now you want to make sure that the people that you surround yourself are of like mind.
Of course.
They may not be of like skill set in the area that you are, but they should be of like mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you want to build your team around, people who are positive
Mm-hmm.
and, and people who are consistent and going to do the things that they say they're going to do, so that it's an equal balance.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing is, don't spend a lot of time with people who continuously show you over and over again who they are, and it's
Yes.
not who you need in your life at that time.
And you need to cut the people out right now that are the naysayers, anybody
Yes.
who's bringing that low energy to you, that discouragement. I know this is something that's really hard, and I'm somebody who's done it myself for such a long time. Like just kind of sometimes we get nostalgic about these old friends.
Yes.
But they were there for me when this happened, and but remember in 2009, what would I have done without this person? And it's okay to have those appreciations for those people.
Yes.
But it's also okay to wake up one morning and be like, you know what? This person is no longer really doing anything for me.
Right.
This person is not helping me get to the next level. And it doesn't mean we have to necessarily cut those people off, but I do think that, you are the top 7 people you spend your time with.
Absolutely.
And so better be smart about those top 7, because if 3 or 4 of them are the lame old homies from back in the day that aren't doing anything now, but being like, oh yeah, you're doing okay, but you could be doing this and you could be doing that, and like throwing shade, what's going to happen is now 50% of your network is reversing your direction.
That's right.
And, it's like you make these choices. We make these choices. And, I talk about this with friends and with my lady all the time, when they come to me and they're like, I just don't feel like this person. And it's like, you have to set boundaries in life,
right.
And you have to set expectations, like clear expectations about your network. And at the end of the day, it's like nobody's going to do that for you.
Absolutely. Another thing that, I think our listeners should keep in mind now that we're in this new year is that, it's okay to, like you said, separate yourself from people who are in your circle that are not as driven as you are, because it will slow you down. It will slow. It's inevitable. It'll slow you down. And if you're the smartest person in your circle isn't wide enough.
Yeah,
you should always be in a circle of people where you are learning, where you are the student.
Totally.
It's okay to be the student and be learning in that environment. I always place myself in environments where I'm not the smartest person in the room. I have room to grow and learn from others, and others learn from me. So like you said, it's give and take. It's not all on one side.
And in 2019, please remember, your mind is a muscle, just like your body. And if you do the same workout routine every single day, guess what you get? 0 results. The same thing is with your mind. If you simply do the same tasks over and over again and ignore your own weaknesses and the areas where you need development, what's going to happen is you're actually going to become less productive.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. Now, what about there are certain themes or certain, ideas that people stay away from. And one of those is fear. One of the topics that people stay away from is fear, because I think that fear drives a lot of what we're talking about.
Totally.
The fear of getting to know new people, the fear of not being the smartest person in the room, right? And the fear of taking on the task of learning new things, the fear of looking under that hood and seeing what's there.
Absolutely.
So I think that one of the things that we'd like to address in 2019, as a collective, is fear.
Absolutely.
And how to walk past it, walk with it, get through it, because that is something that I see that holds a lot of people back that have a lot of potential, and they don't get to where they want to go because it's fear-based. So that's something we're going to talk about in the future.
I like that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This is a great conversation. I love talking to you.
I'm loving it, Char.
So we're going to come right back. We're going to a station break, and we'll be right back. And we're going to tell you what our listeners, the questions that our listeners have. We're going to answer some of those. Okay. This is Charlene.
And this is DjBander.
And we're on Dash Talk X on Lunch with the Finance Bunch, and we'll be right back. And we're back in the studio with my new co-host, DjBander.
Hello.
And we're talking about New Year, New You, the expectations for the show, the things that we've decided we're going to do in this new year to make our lives better, improve ourselves.
Yes.
And I think we've been pretty transparent with the audience, don't you?
Oh, I think so. We're an open book.
Heck yeah.
That's the plan.
And so going into this segment, what we want to do is answer some questions from people who listen to the show and who watch us on YouTube. And so I want to start by saying that we'd love to hear your feedback. Love to. So you can hit us up on Instagram at The Finance Bunch, and also DjBander, you can hit him up. And DM us. Let us know what questions you have, and we'll take those questions and incorporate them into the show and answer those questions for you. So we really want to make sure that we have our finger on the pulse of what our audience wants to know about.
We want to know what matters to you guys.
Exactly. And the type of guest that you would have on, you'd like to for us to have on, and we'll do that too.
Absolutely.
So let's get to some of the questions.
Let's do this.
Okay. All right. So one of our listeners asked, they said, what makes this show different from other financial shows?
I like that.
Right? And so I would say the thing that makes us different is, like DjBander, you touched on this at the beginning of the top of the segment when you said, we're not going after the 1% as our audience. That's not who our audience is. They got it figured out.
Exactly.
We're after the 99%.
Exactly.
We want everyone to be at a space where they are financially comfortable, financially literate, and get the questions answered that they need answered, because I give everyone permission to not know everything.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right? And not feel shame around that, because I don't know everything.
For sure.
Right? And so I think that this show has that different twist, because we take finance and we spin it. We give it a 360-degree angle of looking at it from every aspect. And we bring in people who are financially savvy, who are business savvy, who are life savvy. And we bring those people in and we sit them down and we ask them the questions that you would want to ask them if you were sitting in the room with them.
Absolutely. No,
That's why your questions are so
Charlene.
important, right?
And we really want to make sure people understand that this is the show for the 99%.
Absolutely.
This is the show for the people. This is the show that's going to help bring the millennial generation to what I hope is the safety and security of the baby boomer generation. You know, I've touched on this theme before, but for me, what I think will separate this show is that we hope that when you listen to us, you feel like you're listening to people who you can relate to and that aren't trying to talk to you about money from a perspective of, you know, look what we have, or look what our guests have and look what you don't have, or making you feel like these things are unattainable. We want to show you step by step how each element of the world around you, whether it's finance, political, entertainment, and all of these guests that we bring on, all of them can give you pieces to the mosaic, to the puzzle of your life that you can put together to complete and to achieve your goals.
Absolutely. And we can stamp it success.
That's it.
Right?
Big green stamp.
Yes,
Boom.
success.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yep.
And then the next question I have here that someone asked is, why are entrepreneurs so important to the show? And I'm going to let you answer that. But I want to say this. The reason I feel that entrepreneurs are so important to this show is because everyone has the opportunity to be an entrepreneur at every level.
Totally.
So some call it a side hustle. Some go into full business. But, you know, if you're on this, and I don't knock 9-to-5 jobs because those are extremely important. So I don't want anyone here to think that we're not in tune to and supportive of people who have 9-to-5 jobs. That's not it. But if you have a 9-to-5 job and it's not creating the type of lifestyle that you would like to have, you might want to add a side hustle, become an entrepreneur. So we bring entrepreneurs on so that you can see that they are regular people like everyone else who either jumped out there into the water and learned how to swim, or they did it in a very secure way so that they could get their side hustle on, so that they could get the type of income in and the multiple streams of income to give them the financial success they're looking for.
I love that. And also, you know, let's say you're somebody who's satisfied and happy with your 9-to-5 job, and you want to live for the weekends. There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing at
all.
all.
And one thing that's important is that, you know, one thing that entrepreneurs do is they create jobs.
That's right.
And one thing that is really important is that these entrepreneurs might offer you a different opportunity or option for your 9-to-5. Maybe you want to work for an entrepreneur.
That's right.
Maybe that's more your lane. And I can guarantee you that you're going to get much more job satisfaction working for a successful entrepreneur than being a jack in the box, because the big oversized corporations that are already there, they're comfortable. Their pockets are big and you're replaceable. I mean, anybody can throw the fries in the basket, you know, unfortunately, and there's nothing wrong with that if that's your job. But, you know, I think that my hope is that this show makes people think like, you know what, like I'm going to like put my resume back out there again. Or, you know what, I'm going to go back to community college. I'm going to go back to school. I'm not just going to settle for the help wanted signs hanging on the windows. You know, there's no reason for that. This is the United States. And despite a time that I do feel a lot of young people are discouraged, I know we have a lot of things going on right now in the world, tough things politically, but this is still the United States and you still have so much more opportunity. You know, one thing that one other big important theme that I do want to touch on, and I think it's really important, is I want us to get guests from different countries around the world.
Oh,
because I think it's so many young people in the United States do not travel. And I'm not talking about Cabo or Cancun, okay, or, you know, the Hawaii Islands, okay? I'm talking about really traveling, Latin America, Europe, Africa, Asia. These other places with different mentalities, and where you go and you want to talk, like, before you complain about how hard it is with your job, you should go down to Bogota, Colombia. Where my family actually lives down there some of the year. And, down there, they don't have unemployment insurance. Right. They don't have these things. And I think people take a lot of that stuff for granted. So I hope that we can also really kind of touch on the different themes of war, and think worldly, because I think that'll help people get a lot more humble and appreciative of the opportunities that they have in this country.
Absolutely. And another thing that that this question brings up for me is why are entrepreneurs so important to this show is I was reading just this morning and I wanted to bring this up. And I am a statistics person. Like numbers fascinate. You know that. Numbers fascinate me.
Stats all day? Let's do it.
So there are 7.9 million working age Americans that are officially unemployed.
Okay.
Right now, at another 94.4 million working age Americans that are considered to be not in the labor force.
Yes.
When you add those two numbers together, you get a grand total of 102.3 million working age Americans that do not have jobs right now. And so to be an entrepreneur and to create your own destiny is something that I think is very important, because you can only believe the statistics that you hear about unemployment being at its lowest is because the only numbers that they're going by are the people who are in the system right now.
Exactly.
It doesn't include people who are not in that system.
And it doesn't include all the people who are being underpaid.
And it doesn't include all the people who are being underpaid.
Exactly.
So there is a road to success that can be complemented by your 9-to-5 job.
Yes.
But you don't have to feel ostracized if you're saying you're looking at those statistics because you are listening to the news and it says, unemployment is at its lowest.
Right.
You don't sit there and wonder what's wrong with you, because what you need to know is those numbers are skewed.
Of course.
They're skewed. And that's what that statistic gave me the ability to articulate in a way that you can understand that to be an entrepreneur gets you to a space where you can be successful with a 9-to-5 job or without.
Love it.
Or the combination. So that's why we love our entrepreneurs.
Oh, you go,
right?
girl. You on today. You shine today.
You too. Okay, so why don't we just talk about finance only? I think we answered that question. We don't only talk about finance because you can't get to the money until you have some money to get to the money with.
Yeah, and though it's one of my favorite shows, this is not Squawk Alley on CNBC. No. We're not here to help you. We're not here for just the successful people with money in the market and what should they do. We're here to help you build and become one of those people.
Yes.
That's the goals of this show.
Heck yeah. And so we'd love to hear back from you on the steps that you're taking to be successful. Because I don't know about you, but when I'm out and about and people who watch the show, they've asked me or told me and given me situations where they're like, I was watching your show and it gave me the courage to jump out there and do this little business and now it's successful. So we want to hear from you too. All the people who are taking those steps to get to the space they want to be in. I want you to hit us up on Instagram and let us know how this is working for you. Please do.
Please do. And tell us who you admire and who you follow on social media. Hit us in the DMs and, link us to things that you find interesting and exciting and things that you would like to ask us about and that you'd like to have, be examined in further depth.
Absolutely. So we have another question.
Oh, okay.
And that question is, where is Matthew?
Where is Big Matt?
Where is Big Matt? And does he still play a vital role in the show? And the answer is yes, Matthew still plays a vital role in the show.
Absolutely.
In fact, Matthew was the one who introduced me to DjBander.
That's my dude right there.
Right? And
Shout out to Matt. Real Society in the building.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so what Matthew is a perfect example of is that you can do more than one thing. What Matthew couldn't do was continue to commit to being on the show every Thursday because it was in direct conflict with his sweet spot and his baby, which is Matthew is in the entertainment field and he does commercials.
Totally.
So, daytime hours sometimes didn't work for him and he didn't want to put himself in a position with me where he couldn't co-host on an ongoing basis.
For sure.
And so when we met you, it was perfect because we were looking for a co-host, not looking for a co-host.
Right.
And the stars aligned, totally. Right? And so it gave him the ability to focus on his career in that field and in the other things that he's pursuing, but also to step back and take more of a co-producer role.
Yes.
And really help us take the show to the next level. And so I'm so excited about that. And we meet with Matthew weekly. and he gives his input, and he says that, when he has time, he'll come hang out with us on the show. So that'll be fun.
Yes.
Right.
Well,
so,
we need him here.
Exactly.
For sure.
So that's where Matthew is. And I wanted everyone to know that DjBander is here. And I think we're going to have an amazing year, an amazing season. And I can't wait for the feedback from our listeners. And please let us know in this time, 2019, we want to be as productive, transparent, and really a servant to those who are listening to us.
Absolutely.
In the way that we can help you have the most success that you've ever obtained to this point in 2019 and take that into 2020 and beyond.
Let's do it.
So that's why we're here.
Amen.
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Likewise, Char.
This is 2019. This is Lunch with the Finance Bunch. I'm Miss Charlene.
And I am DjBander.
And we're giving you money talk
You can understand.
So we'll see you all through the year. Please hit us up on Facebook. Check out our website. Definitely hit us up on Instagram.
We love the Instagram at the Finance Bunch and at DjBander. At the Finance Bunch at DjBander. Hit us up right now.
Exactly. So we're going to end this on a high note. Thank you for 2019. It's coming in. It's going to be financially prosperous for all of us. And we'll see you
on the flip side. Thank you for watching, everyone. Be sure to find us on Instagram at the Finance Bunch and listen to us every Tuesday on Dash Talk X.